finally going down this Saturday. You got Cam Ward at Miami, Graham Mertz at Florida. Who's got the quarterback edge?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into this Locked On crossover event. He is Brandon Olsen from Locked On Gators. I am Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making our shows your first listens and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy fixes tired fast. Zero sugar, a convenient portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Go to 5hourenergy.com. Use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid till September 30th, and one order cannot be used with other promotions. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. On this episode, we are going to give you our game predictions now that we're only 2 days away. We're going to talk about the swamp factor with Miami going to a historically very difficult place to play. We'll talk about what we know and what we think about what the depth charts are going to look like. Florida's actually released the depth chart. Miami has not yet. But I want to start with the quarterbacks. Now, Brandon, I've noticed this like groundswell, and I think you might have been the guy who started this, and it's kind of gone viral. This idea that Mr. Checkdown, Graham Mertz, is going to hold the quarterback advantage over Cam Ward at Miami. Give me your take.
Interesting that you call him Mr. Checkdown. Did you know that when you remove the screens and everything, Graham Mertz actually on average throws the ball deeper than Cam Ward? Same completion percentage too, which is to Cam Ward's benefit of having the completion percentage of Mr. Completion Percentage over there in Graham Mertz. So good for Cam Ward there. But yeah, I'm just saying on average, when you remove the screens and the little pop passes, which Cam Ward at Washington State and Graham Mertz at Florida last year was a large chunk of their passes. When you remove those, Graham actually on average throws the ball further downfield than Cam Ward.
Well, I saw last year only 39 passes over 20 air yards for Mertz, so it wasn't exactly like he was feasting down the field. I think he completed 16 of those. Yep,
he completed 16 of those, but I do think that him still having a further average depth of target just shows that he was pushing it pretty consistently in that and it's only like a 1 yard difference between the two. So it's a very small gap there, but yeah, Graham Mertz on average, if you remove the screens, threw it further than Cam Ward. And again, I think that part of what I've been saying has also been completely taken out of context with it. I think Graham Mertz in year 2 gives you an advantage over Cam Ward in game 1. I think Cam Ward has a higher ceiling. I think he's probably going to be a higher NFL draft pick, which we will find out for both of them this April. I think Cam Ward will be a higher draft pick. I think Cam Ward has a higher ceiling. I think Graham Mertz in year 2 has that higher floor than Cam Ward does in game 1. And especially when you consider that game 1 is one of the hardest places on the planet to play football.
I think it makes sense the way that you frame that, and imagine college football fans taking something you said out of context.
The logical one. The logical one.
I can only imagine that happening. Because listen, the stability is important, and for Ward, I've watched him since January at Miami, but you can only really project without having actually seen him play a game in a Miami Hurricanes uniform. Because I've seen a guy who, since arriving at Miami in January, has been very meticulous about getting to know his teammates on and off the field, getting to know the offense very quickly. Similar plays to what he had at Washington State. The offense fit him like a glove, but you don't really know until you know. So I definitely get that. Miami fans obviously feel very good about what Cam Ward is bringing to the offense this year. Seeing him put up ridiculous numbers the last couple of years at Washington State. Last season for Ward, it was 66.6% completions, 3,735 yards, 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And I know the stat that certainly gets brought up a lot in Gator circles, and I get it. It's concerning. The turnover, specifically the fumbles. He did put the ball to the turf 14 times last season. And I know, Brandon, in Ward's case, there obviously can be maybe a higher upside of playmaking than what Graham Mertz possesses, but probably a lower floor when it comes to what Ward is going to bring into this game. As far as the turnovers go, the interceptions were not high for Ward last year. He threw 7 of them to 25 touchdowns. It's really the fumbles that we have to look at here. And so I'm going into this game with eyes wide open, hoping that those issues have been put behind him, because I know ball security is something he's really been working on since he arrived at Miami. And then I think we're also going to find out this year how much of that fumbling had to do with the piss poor pass protection that he was dealing with at Washington State, because they were bottom 4th in the country in pass protection. Miami should project out a lot better throughout the season in that. But I know that that's something we're kind of watching for, because maybe, Brandon, we expect that Ward might take some more chances down the field than Mertz, but then there's also the possibilities of mistakes being made.
Yeah, I also feel like not to say that Washington State's offensive line wasn't just horrendous. I was trying to think of a nicer word. They were just horrendous last year.
They were.
But not to say they weren't horrendous, but just I do feel like Cam Ward has the tendency, of course, to try to hero ball things, scramble around a little, because I know that a lot of people bring up the one of the longest time to throws in the entire country. Part of that is because he's extending plays with his legs and then looking for someone downfield, which, to his credit, it is a thing that NFL teams are going to look for. They're going to say, hey, when you're rolling around, are you still looking with your eyes downfield? But I do feel like part of it is sometimes he got into the Caleb Williams habit, where Caleb Williams of the USC, teams could drop back and he would make a mistake on his own somehow. He would scramble around too long. And I feel like Cam Ward did that. So I'm curious to see what the Gators' approach is, of if they're going to go, hey, well, Cam Ward is throughout his career really bad when throwing under pressure. Cam Ward has the fumble issues when you get him in the backfield. Do we be really aggressive, or do you go, well, Cam Ward has the issue of when you drop into coverage and there's no one there, he tends to kind of make a mistake himself. So I'm curious what the approach is going to be there behind. I mean, look, I've been the guy in the offseason where I've said, hey, Miami's got these transfers and I've got to see how they work together and how they gel together. Offensive line is one of the few areas where I don't really have that concern for, obviously, that coaching staff in Miami. They've been proven to be able to at least put out good offensive line units there. So I'm curious to see what the pass rush plan is against Cam Ward with what should be a really good offensive line in front of him.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm also, like, from a Miami side, when we talk about Ward having played a lot of hero ball at Washington State the last couple of years, what Miami's pass to run ratio is going to look like specifically in this game, because, Miami does have hopefully opportunities. I believe Florida's probably improved their rushing defense from last year. For your sake, I hope they have. But Miami is going to have Damian Martinez leading that charge, coming off of a just under 1,200 yard season last year. So in terms of what Florida's offensive balance is going to look like, we'll talk more about the actual health of the running back room a little bit later on. But do you think it's going to be 55-60% throws, or do you think Billy's really going to try to establish a power running game this Saturday?
I do think that I feel like they're going to have the run game and the extension of the run game type thing with the pop passes and the screens. It's the way around what's, again, expected to be a good pass rush. That's one area where I'm fully standing on. I need to see it from the Miami defensive line as a unit. Obviously, Ruben Bain, really good. But I think that's what you'll see, especially with the new running clock. Games have been shorter. The Florida State game versus Georgia Tech, Florida State had, 7 possessions the entire game. Florida's historically, Billy Napier has been the kind of coach that wants to run the ball, wants to run the clock. I'm expecting to see Florida run the ball consistently, as in just frequency-wise. I don't know about success rate, what that's going to look like, but run the ball consistently, throw screens, pop passes, keep the clock moving, keep the chains moving, and hopefully give Miami just less opportunities, especially when you're the home team. And you know, as long as you're in the game, the crowd will be in the game. And I think that's going to be part of it, of just score pretty consistently, crowd get loud, defense make a play here and there, and then you're right into it. So I think that the plan will be relatively conservative on offense. I don't think Florida Gators fans are going to like that, but I think that's going to be the plan. That's Billy Napier's plan historically when he's an underdog.
Yeah, and this is you mentioned the Swamp. This is a tough road trip for Miami. Florida doesn't lose there a lot. Miami does have I think a 12-9 all-time record at the Swamp, but I mean, what that actually means for Saturday, very little, but it's some historical context. I want to talk about the Swamp factor, and I want to talk about what the Florida depth chart looks like, what I think the Miami depth chart might look like. And guys, this is an epic crossover event. We're only getting started right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. You wonder why I usually have a good amount of energy when I host shows on the Locked On Network. It's because I'm drinking 5-hour energy. No, I'm guzzling 5-hour energy here. Folks, if you get tired after lunch, you're not alone. In fact, research shows that more than 70% of us hit the wall after lunch. Let 5-hour energy, let a shot of 5-hour help you leap over that wall instead of crashing into it. With zero sugar and a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5-Hour Energy website has flavors like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and more. There's a flavor for everyone. Try them all. On the site, you even have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors, and it's delivered right to your door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, get some 5-Hour Energy product today. You can use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid till September 30th on one order, cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Thank you so much for making this Locked On Canes Gators crossover your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On College Football. Our guy Spencer McLaughlin, that dude is working overtime, covering all the big games, all the big storylines as we head into week one. Week 0 was a nice appetizer, but week 1 is going to have a lot of awesome games this weekend, I think, including Miami at Florida, 3:30 p.m. And, Brandon, that Florida is a tough building to win. And I know, like, Miami fans will joke, like, all the Gator fans talk about is the Swamp and the advantage, but it is an advantage, especially, I think, in a season opener when Miami's going to be, dealing with hostility for the first time in a long time.
Yeah. I mean, Florida's won 33 straight home openers. By the way, I don't know if you've watched today's episode of Locked On College Football. Spencer picks Florida to win this game. I'll just like to throw that one out there.
Well, you know why? Because he's a Mario Cristobal bitter ex. That's why. he loved Cristobal until Cristobal told Phil Knight, "No thanks, I'm going to Miami." Then they all turned on the guy.
Yeah, imagine being upset about losing a guy and then upgrading at the head coach position. It's wild stuff to see there for Oregon. Good for them. But with the Swamp factor here, I do think Florida's won 33 straight home openers. We've seen better teams than Florida go into Florida and lose. Like Utah was better than Florida in 2022. Straight up outright, Utah won the Pac-12 in 2022. They still came into the Swamp with a quarterback that's been there for 45 years, and they lost in the Swamp with all that experience, with all we kept hearing about how their retention rate was so great and that they were going to be experienced and capable of playing here. It just got even harder this year. I do think that teams with good home field advantages just got better this year at home because of the in-helmet communication. Teams when they go to play, I don't know, the Chiefs, for example, in the NFL, you see the opposing quarterbacks, they're covering the ears, they're trying to hear it. College stadiums are typically louder than a lot of these NFL stadiums, the Swamp being one of those. I think it's going to be harder. I think that if we see them try the helmet communication at all, they'll probably cut ties with that relatively early on. If they are now making good in-game adjustments. If Miami's doing that, then I think that they'll cut those helmet communications off and start going to a more, silent count with everything, go to old school sideline signs, whatever it may be. But I do think that the helmet communication is going to be quite a struggle for all teams in the Swamp. But I think that's another advantage, especially this is going to be Cam Ward's first game situation doing that and trying to operate with that again, assuming that they try to operate with that during this game, actually. And I do think that's just an added benefit to playing in Gainesville. It's really tough to win there, especially in week 1.
Yeah, it seems like and I've heard this not only from Miami coaches, but from coaches around the country. There's definitely a kind of a little bit of a clunky adaptation to the helmet communication. I think it's something that's going to be a great long-term benefit, but as far as like these first games of the season using those, I hear that like they go out a lot, which is like, I feel like in 2024, we should have better technology than that if these things are going out frequently, but it's definitely something to think about. And listen, I respect the swamp. I'm going to be in the swamp this weekend, so I'm going to experience it firsthand. Now, I want to allow you to clear the air on something because I've been getting these, and it's like, I didn't actually hear you say this. So I'm assuming there was a little bit of contextual massacre on this, because I've had people sending to me tweets claiming that you are heralding humidity as a big reason why Florida is going to have an advantage over Miami, that the humidity factor is going to be a big thing for the Gators. Did you say that?
Well, apparently, to everything that I've said over the past 2 weeks has been tweeted in some way, shape, or form. That's been one thing there. But what I said relatively quickly, was just that I do think that Florida is a little bit more humid that Gainesville is a bit more humid than Coral Gables. There's less of a breeze, and that might have a slight factor. I was never like, oh yeah, this is going to be the deciding factor of the game. No, it's just that there might be a slight factor there with, again, Gainesville just being more humid than Coral Gables on an average basis. But afternoon, I feel like there's not going to be probably that big of a difference between them. But no, I was not sitting here going, that's why Florida's winning. It was a home field advantage matters. And then maybe 30 seconds talking about it. And it was just like, Miami fans were just like, oh, this guy thinks he's a meteorologist. He's going on.
It would be kind of like saying like, oh, this November, in the CFL, the Edmonton Elks are going to have a huge advantage over the Calgary Stampeders.
Hey, they will.
It's a half degree colder in Edmonton on average, so it's a huge advantage.
That adds up.
No, but in all seriousness, so Florida did put out a depth chart, and I'm sure that there are other things that caught your attention. The first thing that caught my attention was, just kind of knowing that maybe the injury status of running back Montrell Johnson has been up in the air since he suffered a minor knee injury, but he did have a procedure done early in training camp. But seeing him listed as running back 1. Is there maybe a little gamesmanship there? Like, do you think he's ready to carry a full load? Is he good to go? What's the word out of Gainesville?
We've been told that if he shows up at the top of that depth chart, he's playing. And he showed up at the top of the depth chart. I don't deny that he's going to play. Mm-hmm. I just really don't think he's going to have much of a workload. Maybe their plan is keep him on the field, primarily passing downs, so that you have your best pass protecting back on the field.
Right.
I just can't see him participating a ton. I do also know that maybe part of their plan is play him against Miami. Next week you have Samford, so give him the whole week off and then worry about it when you go back to SEC play in week 3 against Texas A&M. But yeah, I really can't see him getting a ton of touches. I just refuse. I'm typical injury non-believer here. This is the only place I go conspiracy theorist of. I refuse to believe that guys who were banged up are all of a sudden back like that. Like it doesn't make sense to me. And I said this when Montreal got hurt. I said, if I'm Florida, up until the game actually starts, I'm giving Miami a belief that he's going to be out there. We saw Florida deal with it with Utah last year. Last year, Utah was like, oh, Cam Rising is going to be ready to go in week 1. Didn't play.
I remember that.
Didn't play.
I remember they had him warm up, but like he warmed up with a walking boot on. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, it was a wild thing to see. It wouldn't shock me if Billy Napier's like, you know what? We prepared for that, though. That was a good idea. And now we're going to do it. I can't see Montrell getting a ton of touches. I know that even internally, they feel like he's made significant progress. it's just really tough for me to go, yeah, the guy that got his knee scoped 3 weeks ago is going to be ready to carry a full load against what's expected to be a pretty good Miami defense. I can't buy it. I refuse to. When he's on the field and playing, then I'll buy it. But until then, I think it's gamesmanship.
Yeah, I hear that. Now, Miami has not put out a depth chart yet. I don't expect we're even going to see one until maybe a couple of hours before kickoff. And when I do get my hands on that depth chart at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium on Saturday, the first thing most Miami folks will be looking for, I think, is who's the starting left guard. That's been like one of the few like really open competitions during fall camp. I might be wrong. This is an educated guess on my part. I think Matt McCoy is going to be the starting left guard. It sounds like things have been trending in that direction. Like we'll be looking to see, who have all the starting spots in the defensive secondary. Is Damari Brown going to be a starting corner or starting at the nickel? Is one of the things we're going to be looking at. Mish Powell, is he going to be starting at free safety or starting at the nickel? So there's going to be a few things there. And then like another thing, Brandon, people, and I'm sure this is going to happen on both sides, they read very much into the 2s, 3s, and the ors, because there's always, I noticed this on the Florida's depth chart, there's a lot of ors in there. The Miami depth chart is going to have a lot of ors, because I know one of the big things Miami people will be looking at are who are the starting edge rushers, because that's probably the deepest part of Miami's team. And if it's like, Ruben Bain probably going to be a starter, is it Akeem Mesidor? Is it Ruben Bain and Tyler Barron, Ruben Bain and Elijah Alston? No matter what, I think Miami's going to have a rotation. I think all those guys are going to play quite a bit. So I at certain positions, I don't read too much into the depth chart, because I know there's going to be rotation, and defensive end is going to be one of those spots for Miami.
Yeah, I look at Florida's ors as that's just an indicator that they're going to play. That's it. I don't even look at it as far as who's going to play more snaps, even regardless of who's first or second. I just look at it as who's going to play. I mean, Florida, even all of their ors are listed just numerically. It's just straight jersey number. That's all it is. That's how they sorted it. So it's not like they're, giving any trade secrets away there or anything like that. I am interested to see Miami's edges, because I know that Alston, tremendously productive pass rusher, but not at the power forward level yet. Ruben Bain, I don't even need to talk about him. We know what Ruben Bain is. You have Tyler Barron. I don't know, man. Tyler Barron, if he's out there starting, is not the one that scares me in any way, shape, or form, just because I've seen him be completely unproductive throughout his entire career against the Florida Gators. Maybe he's taken strides, but he's played opposite a really good edge rusher. Last year, James Pierce is projected to be the first edge rusher drafted, a top 5 projection right now, and Tyler Barron played opposite him and wasn't very productive. Mesidor is just someone that has been banged up. We'll see what we actually see from him on the field this weekend, but I'm curious to see just in general what the defensive line looks like, not just the edge for Miami, because that's something that's been so highly touted, but also there's a lot of portal additions and guys stepping up. So I'm just curious to see what that rotation looks like, not even just the depth chart, just what the actual snap count and that rotation looks like for Miami against a new Florida offensive line.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, it's time to put ourselves on the hot seats and make these predictions when we come back. Locked On Canes, Locked On Gators crossover. Who's winning on Saturday and by how much? Who's covering that spread? You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new Locked On crossover. And by the way, if you're looking for an opportunity, no matter what direction you're betting in, whether you go Miami -2.5, Florida +2.5, money. I mean, the line is so close. You're probably looking at maybe money line either way. You want to take a look at this at FanDuel. You've heard us on this network talk so much about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. I may not leave my couch all Sunday coming up. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. We are also proudly brought to you by Factor Meals. I love this because the prep time is 2 minutes and you're getting unbelievable, nutritious, customized meals. With Factor's no prep, no mess meals, you can meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from at Factor, you'll always have new flavors to explore. Crush your wellness goals with dietitian-approved meals, ingredients that you can trust. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well-balanced. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Thank you so much for making this Locked On crossover your first listen and your first watch each and every day. And I would highly recommend, like, for the Locked On Canes viewers, make sure you're checking out Locked On Gators. If you want to scout the other side, Locked On Gators. If you want to hate watch Locked On Canes, I encourage you guys to check out both sides. Brandon and I, we both work incredibly hard, and we're very excited for this matchup on Saturday. And all right, Mr. Olsen, who are you picking and how you think this game plays out?
I'm picking Florida 27-24. I've said all offseason, I think it's a really close game. All offseason, I said I think these two teams talent-wise are closer than either side is giving them credit for. I think Florida Gators fans might be leaning too heavily on, Miami did so much in the portal that they can't be good right away, which I do think is fair. I just think it's leaning way too heavily on that. Miami fans, I think, are leaning way too heavily on Florida won 5 games last year. Their offensive line was bad. Graham Mertz, average depth of target, things like that I don't know if there'll be issues this year, but I'm confident that the team's at least improved in quite a few of the areas that have been brought up. And I think that for Florida, that home field advantage does matter. We talk about gambling. I think Florida is one of the few spots they get maybe 3.5, 4 points when it comes to spread time, just because Florida at home has historically been pretty good. But I think when these two teams are as close as they are, I think Florida, at least because this game is week 1, I think Florida's quarterback situation is just better right now. I've said all offseason, if this game's week 8, I'm probably leaning more Miami, but it's week 1. And so for that, I'm taking Florida to win. I did not bet the spread. I just straight up Florida money line plus 125, bet it May 31st at 10:24 in the morning. And that is exactly what we're seeing. I looked at it before this, and that is exactly what I'm sticking with since then.
It's funny because I think we have the exact same score, because I went on, because I don't want to change it now just to be different from you, because I've already been, and I don't have the Gators winning, but I have the same score in Miami's favor. So I went on record with that yesterday. 27-24. I know we talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago, the last time we connected, that I think it's going to be a relatively low scoring game week 1 for Power 4 matchups. I tend to go with unders. I think it's 54.5 was the number pretty recently. So I guess we're both going right under that. I just think, to me, it's going to be a close game. I don't think anyone is going to create any sort of separation until the fourth quarter, if at all. And I just think, for me, the edge for Miami, it's going to be a slight edge at the line of scrimmage, and it's going to be an edge, I think, with fresh legs at running back. You talked about wondering if, how much Montrell Johnson is going to play. As far as we know on the Miami side, Mark Fletcher's good to go. Now, he is recovering from an injury in the bowl game last year, but he's been full go, no restrictions in practice. Damian Martinez is going to be Miami's starting running back, of course. But if Miami can add a steady dose of Fletcher, where you're going to have a pair of running backs who are over 6 foot and over 225 pounds, I think that can help maybe wear down a defense a little bit. So obviously Cam Ward is going to have to make some plays, but I think I think the power running game and the line of scrimmage play might be the difference here in Miami's favor. But I think, and we both probably agree on this, Brandon, I think this is going to be the type of game where we're going to be on the edges of our seats the entire time. Like, we're not going to have that moment in the third quarter where it's like, all right, I'm good. I'm going to kick up my feet, maybe go split screen with something. I think this is going to be a tense one throughout.
This could be a 40-point game in the third quarter, and I'm not giving up a single. I'm still going to be sitting on the edge of my seat, just like, oh, something screwy is about to happen. I think it's going to be close, especially like I talked about earlier with the Florida State game. Florida State had 7 total possessions. Like, I think that with these new running clock rules, until coaches adjust, you're probably going to see lower scoring games. That's been the trend through week 0. We'll see how that carries on, but I think that that's going to play an important part in keeping this game close. And I've said the only thing that I'm confident in is that this is going to be a close game. Like, it could be high scoring. I think it'll be low scoring, but it could be high scoring, low scoring. And the only thing I'm really supremely confident in is that this is going to be a very close game. Again, I think these two teams are similar talent wise. And it's just, for me, it's week 1. It's going to be close. It's rivalry. They hate each other. I hate every Miami fan that's not named Alex Donno. And so I feel like with this, it's just, all I know is that it's going to be close, probably ugly.
Yeah, an important game for both teams, and you and I will be connecting in Gainesville over the weekend. We'll talk more about it. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Again, make sure you check out and subscribe to Locked On Gators and to Locked On Canes, and we'll talk to you guys again next time on another episode right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.